Hello everyone, welcome back to Moving to Australia podcast. Today we shall be talking about the Subclass 407 training visa, which allows an applicant to visit Australia to complete a workplace-based training or a professional development training program. The training program would allow someone to improve their skills for their job, area of tertiary study, or field of expertise. And joining me in the studio to discuss that is the founder of Debika Migration Services, Amitava Deb. Welcome back, Amitava. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. Good morning, Arun. How are you?
I'm freezing. It's a very
We are all
cold
freezing.
day here in Sydney.
Yes.
Okay, the first question. What is the training visa Subclass 407 for, and who is it designed for?
The training visa Subclass 407 is a temporary visa that allows individuals to take part in occupational training or professional development activities in Australia. It is designed for those who want to undergo occupational training in one of the three streams. The first one is registration of their professional membership or enrollment. Second one is to improve their skills in their current occupation. And the third one is up to 6 months of practical training, which is part of their overseas curriculum or a professional development. Now, we are probably going to be focused mainly on number 2, which is improving the skills in their current occupation. For those who are onshore in Australia, it is for them we want to focus on this one.
So when you say improving their skills, what is it exactly that we are talking about here?
What it means is that the one who is in Australia, the applicant, will have studied in Australia or maybe working in Australia. If they have 1 year of study or work experience in Australia in the last 2 years, they are eligible to nominate their occupation, provided their occupation is in the list of eligible occupations for 407 visa. And this is almost like this concept of on-the-job training. So these guys will be on a visa where they will get trained by a mentor in their employer workplace, and the employer will also benefit from their contribution.
Now, do you believe this is a good option for those who feel stuck here in Australia due to the upcoming student visa application changes, where one cannot apply for a student visa onshore in most of the cases?
Yeah, absolutely, because the training visa Subclass 407 can be an excellent alternative for individuals affected by the changes which will be implemented from 1st of July, particularly those who may not be able to apply for a student visa onshore anymore. So this 407 visa will offer a very valuable pathway to continue developing skills, gaining professional experience in Australia, while they continue to pursue their PR dreams.
Now, can you quickly touch upon the recent changes that the government has announced to the student visa program? And what does that mean for people who are already on a graduate visa?
Graduate visa or student visa. From 1st July 2024, many of those who are onshore on temporary work visa or student visa can no longer apply for another student visa. The government is trying to stop this permanent temporariness of the nature of these kind of visas, where students are not necessarily interested in studying. They are more interested in staying in Australia, working. That's what the government say. And they continue to hop from one student visa to another, hopping between courses. The government is trying to stop that, which means if you're on post-study work visa or a visitor visa, you cannot apply onshore again. You may be able to apply for another student visa under limited circumstances if you already hold a student visa, but not for change of course. So all these details are awaited.
Okay. Now, how can the training visa, Subclass 407, be a viable alternative to the student visa?
So this is a viable and alternative to those who wish to continue to stay in Australia for several reasons. Either they want to enhance their skills further in Australia, or they want to stay and pursue their permanent residence pathway dreams. Then this is an alternative, because from 1st of July they won't be able to they won't be able to apply for student visa onshore. They would have to leave the country and apply, which is why 407 would be a viable alternative. But it needs to be discussed with every applicant, because the aspirations are different for various people.
So talk us through the main eligibility requirements for this visa.
So it is a 3-stage process, or really 2-stage. The first stage is approval for temporary activities. It's called TAS, Temporary Activity Sponsorship, by an eligible employer. If an employer wishes to offer training visa to one of its employees, they'll have to apply for that one, and it is valid for 5 years. During that 5-year period, they can apply for a training visa or nomination for a training visa for an employee, and then once the nomination is approved, the employee can apply for a training visa. Note that you don't have to wait for the nomination approval. Once the nomination is lodged with the reference number, the applicant can apply for a training visa. This is particularly useful when the visa is running out and they cannot really wait for the nomination approval. They can jump on a bridging visa and continue to stay here.
So walk us through this whole training program.
Mm-hmm.
What types of programs are eligible under this visa?
I briefly touched upon that. So one was for registration of professional membership or enrollment for those who need to participate in a professional development training program in Australia. The second one is for someone to improve their skills in this current occupation. And the third one is for those who are doing practical training or research as part of overseas qualification. So, did I get your question right? Or?
Yeah. That's what I wanted to know.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Now, how long can someone stay in Australia on a 407 visa?
Maximum one can stay is 2 years. That is for the second stream, which is improve their skills in their current occupation, which is the one which will be mostly used. But for others, the other streams, the maximum is 6 months.
What are the benefits that you see in someone applying for this visa?
The many benefits. It includes the opportunity to gain valuable workplace training and professional development in Australia, which can significantly enhance career prospects. Visa holders can also bring in their family members, eligible family members, to Australia, allowing them to experience life in a new country altogether. The employer also benefits from the contribution of someone who is being trained within the organization. They also, the applicants also have an additional time in Australia to explore their onshore PR dreams in parallel, and then apply for PR through an appropriate subclass when eligible.
Can students who are already enrolled in a program in their home country also travel to Australia on this visa as a part of their professional development?
Yeah, that is the stream 1 which I briefly spoke about. The stream 3. So if you remember, I think in India, most engineering colleges, they have this program of industrial training, summer internship, etc.
Yeah.
as part of their final year out of those 4 years. and they have to go and find an organization ready to take them as trainees. So this particular visa is meant for that, this particular stream within that visa.
Okay. Now, someone on a 407 visa has a pathway to permanent residency in Australia?
It directly doesn't have a pathway, but while someone is on the 407 visa and they have gained the experience, this can be beneficial for the visa holder later on when they're applying for PR. The experience points could be added. They can explore options like employer-sponsored migration. So the same employer who sponsored them for 407 visa, if they're happy, they can sponsor them for employer-sponsored.
What subclasses are we talking about as pathways for PR?
Subclass 186, which is employer-sponsored,
Mm-hmm.
and general skilled migration, which is 189, 190, 491.
Now, what should someone do if their 407 visa application is refused?
Well, if it is refused, one has to look at the reasons for the refusal. The letter will have those details. Depending on the grounds of refusal, they may have the option to request a review through the AAT, Administrative Appeals Tribunal. But it's always better to get a legal advice, and it can be a lengthy and expensive process. But while the appeal is on, the important thing to note is that while the appeal is on, the applicant can remain in Australia and continue to work.
Now, can you tell me the key differences between TSS Subclass 482 visa and Subclass 407 training visa?
Oh, yes. I can think of quite a few, 5 or 6. The first one, labor market testing. For 482 visa, in most cases, labor market testing is required unless exempt. For 407 training visa, no labor market testing is required. Number 2, 482, there is a minimum income threshold TSMIT limit of 70,000 Australian dollars per annum, regardless of occupation. And of course, it still has to be aligned to market rate. So just having 70K is not enough. A software engineer, for example, must be paid more than that to be at par with market. But for a training visa, there is no minimum income threshold requirement.
Isn't the income threshold going up from 1st July, from 70K to 73?
Yes, it is. So it is as per the labor survey. Okay, the third one, the difference between 482 and 407, the third one is that 482 can be for a period of up to 4 years for an occupation which is on the medium to long term list. Mm-hmm. But for 407, the maximum period of grant is 2 years. Okay, we've covered 3. The next one, prerequisite for the visas. For a 482, subclass 482 visa, one must have 2 years of relevant experience. While for 407, one can have 1 year of relevant experience in the last 2 years, and that experience need not be work experience. Study experience is also counted. So there's a little bit of leeway there. For 482, study is not an experience. It's a strange one. Study as an experience. Now, the fifth one, English requirement. English requirement for 482 visa mostly is an overall band of 5 in IELTS or equivalent in PT or all those other acceptable tests. Whereas for training visa, it is 4.5 in IELTS or equivalent. Now, the test is exempt if the tertiary education was in English or the passport holder is from one of those 5 English-speaking countries. You know which ones those countries are? I think it's UK, Canada, Ireland, New Zealand, US.
America, yeah. Okay.
And The final one is nomination can be transferred for both. So if there is another employer who wishes to recruit this trainee for 407, we call them trainee, or employee for 482, then all they need to do is transfer the nomination because they already have a visa.
What are the regulations regarding that?
They have to follow the prerequisites for nomination transfer for 482. They have to do the labor market testing, apply online through IMI.
But their visa validity still remains 2 years. It doesn't now extend because now your nominee has changed. Your sponsor has changed.
Yeah, correct. We are not changing the visa. We are using the visa. The visa is covered. Or for example, if a person has left the organization, okay, then he has a visa, but he does not have a nomination. So his visa is orphaned. So he needs to find a parent quickly. What is that quickly? It is 60 days. 60 days for 482. For 407, it's not specified.
Does an applicant also need to give reasons behind why he is moving to another organization for training?
No.
Any justification required there?
So a training plan would be required. No justification required. A training plan. So there's another difference. Training plan. So for training visa, there is a requirement for a training plan. Who is going to conduct the training? There has to be another employee, senior employee, who will be doing the training. Whereas for 482 visa, there is no requirement for a training plan, but there is a requirement for a position description.
Now, at the top of the podcast, you did mention that there is some level of professional development also involved when it comes to the training visa.
Right.
Touch upon that a little bit. Who would that be for, and who would want to undergo?
Usually for overseas professionals or managers who wish to do an professional development which they cannot undertake in their own country. So they could come here, for example, for an executive MBA, and that would be considered professional development. Any kind of short classroom training as against a student visa, where someone comes here, they get marked for their studies. Professional development is attending a professional development course for their own career development, usually sent by the employers, overseas employers.
So let's round off this podcast with your final thoughts on the training visa. Who would this benefit the most, given the recent changes that are going to be forced upon from 1st of July?
I think training visa is going to be useful for those people who feel a little lost about what they can do, because they wanted to probably stay here longer, either applying for another student visa, and they cannot do that because they are already on their 485 visa. This is a good alternative. Not that this option has just come up of training visa. This has already existed, but it is, I think, it is time for everyone to start looking at this as an option. I have done this for many of my clients.
Okay. Thank you again, Amitava, for your valuable insights. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Arun. Have a lovely day.
And everyone, thank you for listening, and we'll see you next week. Goodbye.
Bye.